Hey yogis, we are talking about the funky focus of the month, which is the hips and the angles. So we're going to look at extended side angle, triangle, really even half moon. We're looking at this configuration of feet, and then what are your hips doing in that configuration. So really quick, we'll just take a look at extended side angle. So almost like warrior two legs, your back heel and your front heel can be in one line. You might find it's a little more comfortable for your back heel to be a little bit outside of your front foot or a little bit behind it. So just kind of play around with what feels stable for you. And then in extended side angle, it's really helpful if you can stack your joints. When in doubt, in most poses, see if you can stack your joints. So in extended side angle, one of the most common ways to take it is to put your hand inside your front foot down on the floor. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, you might be able to see that my rib cage is a little bit squished. I can't breathe very well, and I don't have much mobility to be able to move my rib cage. So not necessarily a bad thing. I might be able to work on some hip flexibility here. Could be some benefits. However, I want you guys to take some freedom to play around with lifting up a little more. So now that I have a block, I can actually now rotate my rib cage up. I can take some deeper breaths. And then you can play with maybe even going up a little higher. You can play with coming up this direction. Now all of a sudden I can lift all the way up from my thigh. I've got a lot of movement and freedom through my rib cage, tons of spinal extension. So you can get a lot of great benefits by just allowing yourself to lift up away from the floor a little bit more. Another option is to place your block on the outside edge of your foot. Now from here, I can even come up to my fingertips. For me, this feels really comfortable for my hips. Inside, I get a little bit of a tweaking action on the back side of my hip. When I'm on the outside, I just have a little bit more freedom and range of movement. So another option here with your top arm, you can reach up, you can reach off to the side. This is a really nice side body stretch. You can start playing with a bind here. Tons and tons of arm options in the extended side angle. So that's one thing that you can play around with. Same thing with triangle. Triangle is very, very similar. You're just looking at a straight leg. Now that your leg is straight though, you're farther away from the floor. For my body, if I go all the way down to the floor, you'll notice that I have to bend downward. And then if I try to stack anything, now all of a sudden I'm getting a pinching action on the back side of my hip back here. So I want to make sure that you guys have tons of tools to avoid anything that feels painful for your body or puts pressure on any of your joints. So that's the other thing that I want to look at, is making sure that your joints are in a good position so that your body is supported the best way possible. So if you're facing the camera or facing the edge of your mat, whatever makes sense for you, you're going to keep your right toes facing forward. Your left toes you're going to face straight out to the left, heels in line for now. We'll just take a quick peek at what your hips are doing in these leg positions. So right now, I'm in a little bit of external rotation. What's happening right now is, if I'm not conscious of moving one way or the other, naturally you're going to kind of come in this mid-range between where your feet are. When we're talking about extended side angle or triangle, most of the time your top hip, the one that's pointing towards the ceiling, is moving upward in that direction, which is totally fine. But if you take a peek at my knee, if I stack my hips, now they're parallel. If you think about me, if I'm changing my position to gravity, now my hips are parallel or stacked. Now my knee is no longer in a good position. Now all of a sudden I'm putting my body in a position that I'm going to cause harm to my joints instead of helping them and making them healthier, which is one of the goals of yoga, is to make your body healthier. So when we're looking at these positions, whether you're moving into a warrior one, which now my back knee is in a bad position, or I'm trying to stack my joints for an extended side angle or triangle, now my front knee is in a bad position. The other thing that can happen is if I'm locked up super strong through my back body, which is super important, and then I try to move my hips, now all of a sudden my torso is doing the tweaking action. Now I'm starting to get pain on the SI joint, the back side. So either way, if your knees are feeling a little bit of undue pressure, or if your low back or SI joints are feeling a little bit of undue pressure, that's just a good signal to you. Oh, I need to change the position of my hips a little, or I need to grab a block so that I can change the position of my hips. If we go back to this extended side angle, where my hand is on the ground, my hips can't really move much, and if I'm locked into a position that's not so great for me, it's going to be harder for me to get out of it. So if I come up here, now all of a sudden I can focus, is my butt working? Yep. Is my back leg working? Yep. super solid anchor for me. Now I've got a ton of freedom to be able to move my arm to any position because I've got this anchor, because my hip is in a nice stable position. So I want to give you guys the freedom to not only play around with the angle of your hips in these poses, but also play around with blocks, play around with lifting up a little higher than you might normally. If you're working on a bind especially, coming up a little higher gives you more length to your spine, so you're not trying to bind in one of these kind of positions. So if you have questions about any of that stuff, let us know. This is all about freedom and play to make the pose work for you so that you are best supported in your yoga practice. Let us know if you have questions.